And what you think it's going to, and the roof is terrible. That roof wasn't even 15 years old. My house in Rochester, I had an architectural shingle roof. 15 years.
Your name?
Yes.
It's been a while since you've had 7.
Oh, do I? Yeah, I can move down a little bit.
How much longer do you need this on?
Couple minutes in the room.
You started recording?
Okay.
Need a chair, Bob. Not really.
Bob, are you sitting over here?
I guess I will.
I don't want people to hear me. I'm working on it, Hal. You're next.
I feel better now. Linda, may I have a large, please? Oh, yeah, there. If it's consolidated on that, that's... Oh, okay, I'll take the color version.
I only have one, and
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, this is
does
nice.
anybody else want a?
I'm working on my condo right now. We have a budget meeting in a month. And I'm trying to keep people from the reserves. It's got to be in the budget. It's not going to be done. And how can we do that?
No, I'm okay. Yeah, we can work, get one over there if you want. I mean, we just have to figure out how you get.
Daughters in a condo up in Vermont. They
Going crazy.
run that thing pretty tight. I mean, you know, the got it needs to be clean. There's a schedule for it. You don't get it before, you don't get it after the
Okay. Oh, we need this one. So you've got to put some new filters now. We've got to do this.
That's why Vermont actually monitors that kind of stuff. They'll give you like they'll tell you whether or not the associations are what's the word?
Well, if you're going to buy a condo, first thing you should look at what kind of reserves do they have.
Yeah.
Because anybody who doesn't think maintenance.
Well, that's actually the home inspector that tend to have walk through all that. But he showed us, one she bought was some others and stuff. I said, this is the one you really should.
How close, Bob? I'll figure something out.
Susan put them first on the agenda.
She did.
I thought I had already seen it.
For some reason. Yeah.
Joe said that he's
Can
going
you pass those around?
This is the good 2 words.
No.
to turn it over to Bob for the presentation, and he'll take over to accept inputs. Oh, that's fine.
Okay. That works.
Focus any better?
Because keep them asking. We have not talked about this budget.
I figure most
But
people
that
are
I
going
have
to
to
look
do
at
with
copy.
the selectmen and you as well. But so for purposes of tonight, I put in
Once you get going.
last year's recommended.
We're set, huh?
I'm set.
That we ended up coming down from
Questions, I'm going to sit down.
sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call the Town of Northwood Planning Board
Right, the first number we put in that we came down.
to session
Came down to.
today, September 23rd, and it's about 6:35, according to the 6:34, according to the clock on the wall. Would each member announce their presence?
Jeff Tenley.
Betty Smith?
Joseph McCaffrey.
Bob Strobel, alternate.
Dwayne Curry.
Hal Kreider.
Baldwin?
All right. And tonight we're going to be talking about or having a public hearing on the capital improvement program. It's going to be presented by our ex-chair but current alternate Bob Strobel. Before we get to that, we're going to take a look at the minutes, approve the minutes. If
Could you please state on the record who the voting designation is?
say again.
Voting designation for tonight?
Okay, voting designation, yes. All present. Well, no, let me switch that.
Have to designate Bob.
Bob, and otherwise it would be.
They're both alternate.
If you appoint them both, we would have a full board of 7.
Okay, so we can allow the alternates in that case.
You could see both of them.
All right, so with you as the exception, that's where I'm going. Yep. So all present with the exception of Bob Strobel.
No, we can, Bob's fine.
Included. I thought you said no. Okay, my question was the negative. So all present are included. And for consideration of the minute.
To accept the minute.
Motion to accept the minutes. Thank you, Betty.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Curry. And are there any exceptions to be made or any corrections? All right, that's nice. Hearing no corrections to be made, we have a motion to approve the minutes. All approving the minutes, say aye.
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 All are approving. Minutes are approved. Let me just add to that. Those were the minutes for September 9th, our last meeting. So tonight we're going to primarily consider the capital improvement program that the planning board is essentially in the oversight position of presenting for all of the townspeople to see, and also as a document to be presented to the select board. It's a planning tool that...
Mr. Chair, we do have one case on the agenda.
I'm sorry?
We do have one case on the agenda that
I'm sorry,
I would
yes.
suggest getting out of the way first.
Okay, you're quite right. Thanks, James. The we have an item on the agenda that's was a new case that is asking for an extension. It's actually already an approved item from last year. It's case 1820, 168 Granite Properties, LLC, First New Hampshire Turnpike and Old Turnpike Road. Adjoins both sides of the property, and the applicant proposes, or did propose, to subdivide a 43.83 acre parcel, and they are now, and that was approved with conditions, and the applicant is seeking now a 1-year extension of the planning board approval, which occurred August 27th, 2020. So is there a motion to grant this extension?
Mr. Chair, we did have to, in order to grant an extension, you will need to hold a public hearing. We did have to notice a public hearing for tonight.
We do have to,
You need to open and close a public hearing in case any members of the public would like to provide testimony. But for a little bit of background, you should all have a copy of the notice of decision. I also emailed it to the board earlier today. I guess, condition of approval that you had put in that is necessitating this extension prior to the issuance of building permits, it's condition number 10. You had required of the applicant to record the plat with Rockingham County Registry of Deeds within 1 year of this decision, that decision being August 27th of 2020. There are permitting things that are other conditions that are required before that can happen, and several of those things are still in process. My understanding is the big one is alteration of terrain that's approved by NHDES. Actually, I was copied on feedback from NHDES regarding that permit as the town planner. So I'm very comfortable with the fact that the applicants are still working towards their permits. They just have not been issued yet. So the applicant is essentially requesting a 1 year extension to condition number 10. So if approved, that would be granting an extension to August 27th, 2022 would be the new date for by which the plan would need to be reported with the registry.
all right, James, I appreciate that. Could you clarify which items are outstanding that they particularly want?
I haven't done a full check of what items we have and have not received on this application. I will note there are 12 total conditions of approval that are a variety of state and local permits. And I'm not sure that the applicant has even submitted everything that they have, because it's fairly typical to wait until you have everything all at once and submit it together. So if they're still waiting on that alteration of terrain permit, they may not have submitted to the town their wetlands permit, for example.
All right, 'cause you have listed some 12 items with several sub-elements, and you're saying there's a variety of these that may or may not be met, but some of them they need time on.
Yes.
I mean, that's essentially, and there's nothing that's at issue there that suggests it's a matter of just getting some of these things done, further time to get these things done.
And Mr. Chair, the applicant is here tonight, so if you'd like detailed information on what has been done and what hasn't, they can probably provide better details than I can. But yes, my understanding is that permitting is slow right now. Everybody's busy. I know this board has felt it, and that goes the same for state organizations as well. So I'm not particularly surprised that some permits are taking longer than we had previously expected.
All right. Is there any board member that would like to hear any element of why the...
Well, you are required to open the hearing for public comment, so
All right.
if the applicant wants to speak, they're entitled to come up to a mic then.
Well, they would only speak under public comment? I mean, we can't ask them just...
You can talk to them as the applicant, but we're opening the public hearing either way.
All right. Well, then, just for that matter, and since this is up for our consideration as far as extending the granting of this application, I'll at this time open to public comment. Anyone that wishes to speak on this matter, Granite Street properties, and that, and it would be speaking, since it's already granted, it's speaking to whether this should be extended. Is there anyone that would like to speak to that?
Well, good evening. For the record, my name is Stephanie. The last couple of planning board meetings, we listened to Mark Sargent. Mark Sargent is unavailable. In fact, the president of the Land Security Association gave a presentation in Chicago. Cindy Baker, who's a wetland scientist, she also spoke in front of you. She has an obligation to that. So what we have tonight to present is a letter to Land Smith. And this is a letter primarily to Mark Sargent regarding the progress of what things are going, how they're going, and at the same time, the second note that you're going to see is from the Department of Environmental Services, where we have a wetlands permit, which is approved on. The last letter that you're going to see is, you go to note 1 stop on the Department of Environmental Services website. They have a kind of a status results of the alteration of terrain. What they've done is they came back to us and they would like us to put more of a bigger dependency on, or engineers, what you call it, water department, that could restore, prevent any type of storm. This is all in process. The C-19 costs a lot of people time. Some of your contractors that we're working with, you probably know it's more truck parking in the yard, simply because this isn't something that's happening to Jeffrey and Lee. This is something that's happening right across the board in the state. The violence has improved. The alteration plan, they are 6 to 4 months behind. Finally, we filed an application complete. At the same time, they have to go to that one-stop site at the Department of Environmental Services. They'll give you all the alteration plan status for the 3 other properties that are going. Kind of interesting to visit that site. That's the status. So you can find out the board members. It's not here. Happy to take any questions before that.
Any questions from the board? Hal?
If we have the extension, does that in your mind change anything relative to any bonds or surety bonds or performance bonds that we might have or require? That all stays the same. So it's really just the delays that you're experiencing that are causing the request. It's not something that's changed in the owner's viewpoint of the project or desire to complete the project. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just so I understand, the overall was that there's various approvals that would come from the state in one instance, several alteration of terrain, or you might have mentioned 1 or 2 other items, and that's been delayed substantially at state level. You're saying at least 6 months or so? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then there's some other elements at the contractor level where they are backed up? Did I get? No.
I'm just saying, my personal experience dealing with large contractors in the state, they are not getting projects done simply because of the C-19 environment with the Department of Environmental Services not working like everything way ahead.
Chair, can I?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I can vouch for that because I do design work and for bridge crossings, and they have a large turnover at DES. They have a lot of new people, and they've lost a lot of experienced people, so they are behind in the permitting process by quite a few months. So,
Anyone else? It sounds like a very substantial reason to allow this extension. Really, if you can't get the basic approvals that are needed to go forward, that's a no-go situation. Puts everybody at, or at least the people trying to complete a project, at quite a disadvantage. Yes, Betty?
What is the date we need to extend you?
I heard August 22nd, 2022.
27.
What?
August 27.
22, 27.
The date of the notice of decision is August 27 of 2020. The condition number 10 says 1 year from the date of decision, so we would be granting an additional year to August 27 of 2022.
Okay, motion to grant an extension to August 27th, 2022. Second.
Point of order, we didn't have the public hearing yet, and I'd like to hold off voting until we hear the public.
Well, that's true. There was only, yes, I would agree with that, Hal. That's a good point. Thank you, sir.
Motion withdrawn for a moment.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this item? No. All right, Hal, nonetheless, you were correct. That was good. Appreciate
I
it.
wasn't sure, I thought.
Okay, there's a lot of just procedure that has to be,
Yes,
boxes
we
have to
just
be checked.
dotted an I and crossed a T or two, I think.
So do we want to unwithdraw the motion?
Well, you can reiterate, whichever you would like. You can reiterate it
Whatever makes you feel
or
most comfortable.
put it anew if you like.
Okay, motion to extend until August 27th, 2022.
Second,
All right.
or did I take somebody's second already?
You can have it. We fight
we-
over them all the time.
discussion.
We have any further discussion from the board?
So exactly what are we extending? The conditions of
So
approval?
we would be extending the duration by which the applicant is required to meet condition 10. Condition number 10 is the only
Time dependent.
temporally situated condition of approval. So that's the only thing that we gave them an explicit deadline. The other conditions remain in place. The order of the other conditions remain in place, so things that are required before the signing of plans still have to be completed before the signing of plans. The plan still needs to be signed before it can be recorded, etc. So the order of operations remains the same, the other conditions remain the same and remain enforceable. Essentially, we've done this by stating the explicit date, but if we took condition number 10 and said it must now be recorded within 2 years of the date of this decision, that's effectively the same thing.
All right, thanks,
If
James.
that's an easier way to understand.
And what James is referring to on 10 is that the plat be recorded with the Rockingham County Register of Deeds within a year of the decision being last year. So that's still on schedule. We're extending 1 year, everything else. Itemized, 1 through 12. So I hear we've an approval, right?
The motion, there's been a second. Just
The second, oh, I'm sorry, and nobody vote? Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
All approving? So the motion passes. And you have your extension.
Did we do an NOD for extension? We probably should. Okay.
Hope the next part goes well for you.
Well, having jumped the gun before, so we return to a masterful presentation from our previously esteemed leader to present something known as the Capital Improvement Program.
Mr. Chair, would you mind opening the public hearing for the CIP?
It needs to be
Needs to be open.
as you present it. Yeah.
Doesn't matter, I can present it, but we still need to have declare the public hearing open.
Okay.
And I can't do that anymore.
You can't, what?
I can't do that anymore.
Yes, no, but I thought you were going to do it just in the presentation by itself.
Unless you make me chair, which is temporary.
All right, so we're going to open a public hearing regarding the CIP, Capital Improvement Program. It's going to be presented this evening by Bob Strobel.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to PowerPoint you or Excel you to death because there aren't many people here who have either not seen this or aren't sick of seeing Excel spreadsheets. This printout spreadsheet, however you want to think about it, is generally divided into two halves. The left half with the dark black line is the, not loud enough? Yeah. Nope,
Dead.
That's dead. I'll get closer.
Would you want to sit?
No, I'm okay. I had a very late night last night, so if I stand up, I'll stay awake. So if you're looking at the spreadsheet or the printout, there is a black line about 2/3 of the way down. The left side of that black line is the annual requests in the year that they were expected to be purchased or proposed, not adjusted. On the right side of that, with the header that I believe says adjusted, is the actual CIP plan. The numbers on the left are totaled across the bottom for the annual requests. And again, unadjusted. There are some notes below those as well. Items like in the pinkish is the, I got to look at it here myself. The ambulance fund requests, the total balance for each year, and then NES being Northwood Elementary School, annual requests separated out. As you look, I've separated by color the departments for the requests: library, highway, transfer, recreation, etc., fire department. Fire and rescue has two different shades of red. The dark red is purchases or items proposed to be funded by the ambulance fund. As you go to the right from the left-hand side, you're moving upward in time. You know, fiscal year 2022 requests, 23, etc. Each item in that column gives you the total requested costs. Planning board did have a chance earlier this month, the 12th. When did we have the town departments here? Was it the 12th?
Was it last month?
Last month.
Last month, August, to essentially have the department chairs or heads justify their costs and answer any questions from the planning board. Some of those projects and numbers have been adjusted based on that testimony. I think the only one that really came into question was that the radios proposed by the fire department were grant funded for this year, or 2022.
And we removed an item.
And yes, that item has been removed from the tally. As you move to the right, You're getting into the adjusted columns. And let me go over some of the numbers and the formatting in that. If you have or see a dashed line surrounding a series of numbers year by year, that means that the cost has been amortized or bonded, or the total cost has been adjusted over to be paid over several years. The box dashed lines also mean that something has changed from the original request. Typically, the year that it's funded for has been moved from the original proposed requested year. Trying to think what else there are. Total dollars for requests and adjusted are in yellow across the bottom. And as is typical, we've seemed to adjust around 600, 500,000, 700,000. It varies from year to year. The goal of the CIP, I should have stated this at the beginning, even though everybody here is familiar with it, is to take the swings of budget requests, if you look on that are on the left-hand side of the project of the spreadsheet. For instance, 2022, you've got almost 1.5 million. In 2024, you're at less than half a million. The following year, you're at 2.5 million, almost. To take those swings of income or revenue and adjust them out over time so that you do not have the swings that affect the tax rate and the budget. Okay, that is my Excel to death. So at this point, I will be glad to answer any questions. Does that mic work? It does now. Okay.
Ginger Dole. Bob, I was following along with what you were saying. One of my big questions, under the fire department, the $850,000 for facilities, addition to Narrows, replace Ridge.
Yes.
But going over to the opposite side, I can see 5 years beginning in 2023 that have figures that are in those separate boxes. I guess what I'm asking is a proposal to the selectmen and then perhaps to the town for $850,000 in 2022 and $2 million in 2025.
Yes. To my recollection, that is a separate project.
Okay.
And I was not there for the very beginning of it, but my conversation with the chief was that those proposals are separate from and are to be considered within the context of a possible safety complex. That if the town decides at some point in time to fund a safety complex, that at least the revision or the relocation of the Ridge Fire Station would be pulled from the CIP. If that cost is incorporated or that project is incorporated into the safety complex.
I obviously had other questions. It seems like large amounts of money that
Yes.
are being proposed from primarily the fire department, as I can see here.
And to answer your question, the 185,000 in the dashed lines in red was a combination of that 850,000 and the 2 million in a bond. I think that's the way I did it.
But that doesn't come up
Nope.
to
No, that
almost
comes,
$3
that
million.
just comes
Never
out to
mind.
the 850.
Sorry, I had to look.
In fact, I totaled those
doesn't.
up and it came up to 900 some odd thousand, and I figured, well, that must be the interest.
I think that was a prior version than my head. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, that is just a bond for the 850.
Was there any specific discussion regarding in year 2023 for, under the fire department, for the replacement of engine 3 for $750,000?
Let me look. No, there wasn't. Hmm. You might have found a fault with that, Ginger.
That's my job.
Yes.
Ginger, could you be so kind as to repeat your question? Just
Yes, I was asking if when the fire chief was here presenting his request, if he had given any specific information regarding a $750,000 purchase to replace engine 3 that he is proposing in 2020, where am I?
3.
Thank you, 2023. You had mentioned earlier that the department heads were here and giving explanations.
Yes. I'd have to watch the video again of the presentation.
And he did not, I think, he did not speak to that.
No.
Very,
He did. I seem to recall, though, multiple times a conversation or a statement about grant monies, especially, I can't remember the federal program for it. And I did do a lot of analysis based on the numbers that I was provided. Your numbers might be better than mine. As far as the actual dollar figures available and the income for the ambulance fund.
The money isn't there.
Okay. I'm given what I'm provided.
I understand.
By the department
No,
heads,
and
so-
I know, I understand the process.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that department heads might be here tonight to
Mm-hmm.
be able to answer any questions. Can you give me the date of the meeting where the department heads came, and then I can review the meeting at home?
That was the second meeting of August.
Yes.
First meeting.
First meeting.
First meeting in August.
First meeting
So
in
that would have been
August?
the 12th,
I'm sorry?
I was thinking that was
August 12th.
August 12th?
I did some, in fact, I might have it up here. Well, I guess I got rid of it. I did notice that there was, with the ambulance fund requests, the requests did outpace the revenue significantly. But I don't have the dollar figures now. I must have edited them out.
And
Bob,
Yes.
it looks like, looking at this, so this second, the left side of FY22 request going all the way through 2031, that is what departments have requested when they requested it, right?
Yes.
On the right side then, repeating from 2022 to 2031, that is you evening the expenses, and that is sort of the anticipated, if we took all of these things, balance them out, and put them either in the budget or on the warrant article, what you would expect to see in a given year, right? It looks like you have excluded everything that would be paid out of the ambulance fund from the right side in this spreadsheet.
I agree.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yep, I did. And there was a reason for that, but I think I deleted it from the actual presentation.
Right, so if the ambulance fund is sort of a separate revenue fund, are you excluding them here because they're not going on the warrant to be funded out of the general fund? Or should those be appearing here?
They should be appearing because the costs for purchasing the equipment cannot come from a let's say unsecured fund balance, in that no one will give a lease to someone who
May not have the money.
may not have
for
the money
years
in
from
that
now.
fund.
Yeah.
So it's going to come from the general fund, and then the ambulance fund can reimburse the general fund, is my understanding of it.
No.
I'm a bit frazzled by
No.
that.
I can explain that, or our selectman can, whoever
No, go
wants to. The warrant article would be written as such that, let's say there wasn't enough, say you were asking for 100,000 and there was only 70 in the ambulance fund, then the warrant article would be written 70,000 to be taken from the ambulance fund, 30,000 to be raised and appropriated through taxation.
Correct.
So you don't really know now, this is an estimate of the cost.
If I may,
Yes, go ahead.
I think Ginger brings up a good point, in the sense that if you were to carry them over in the years that you showed them over onto the right-hand side, and then did a similar analysis the way you did on the left-hand side, and then we could still focus on the very bottom line to see what the net tax impact would be, I think that would be more helpful, because I think it would address Ginger's question.
Yes.
And the other part to this is, and I know we did this when we went through the ambulance, the newest ambulance funding, we made a very detailed calculation to show every single January how much money is in the thing, what's the word, Ginger?
In the fund.
In the fund, how much we spend during the year, how much is left at the end of the year, how much ambulance revenue came in through the year.
Month by month.
I don't think we did. I don't think
Yeah.
I did it, but maybe.
Sandy did.
Yeah, somebody did
She
it.
presented it for the budget committee.
But anyway, that we could include that, and Cheryl could help us
Sure.
calculate that out. But I think that would really address Ginger's question, and it would be to Linda's point. Then we'd know how much we'd have to split up and actually, instead of doing it through the reserve fund, we'd have to know how much we're going to add. And because ultimately, I think our goal is to either, keep as reasonably steady as we can the overall tax impact.
Correct.
And, I think you have the calculations right on this side, with the exception that we don't know the funding balance as we go through the different years. And Cheryl, I know she can do that, probably.
Okay.
Base it on
What I
what,
would-
though? What would it, could it be?
Well,
based-
we'd have to make some assumptions, like the last time we assumed $90,000 a year
Right.
in ambulance revenue.
That's what I was told.
Maybe we might have to change that.
So it'd be a guesstimate, in other
Oh,
words.
well, all
Sure.
these are guesses, but, just like we were with the ambulance, we want to be conservative. We don't want to,
Right, right.
so, the ambulance revenues are doing a little bit better, but I wouldn't put it what their current rate is. I mean, we don't know how long it's going to stay.
No.
But we could probably bump it up to maybe 120. I
So
shouldn't say a number, but she could do a couple examples we could see, and then we can decide. But I really, this is actually very good input. I think we need those extended, and then and the calculation.
Now that my brain is working a little better, I believe, because this is my work computer, I think I have the old version of the CIP, which is what I emailed you, and what
Wait,
you have a
did
copy
you
of.
email us the old version or the work?
The original version, that, because I know I did numbers for the ambulance fund balance. But this is not it.
Well, the
Okay,
numbers that you've got up there
And the numbers here are what I gave you,
is
which
what this is.
is-
But you
Okay.
believe that it's been updated since
I believe it's
then?
been updated, because that's how I'm getting my numbers of the,
Can you find
I
it
think it
there?
was 3.4 million requests and 2.7 million in revenue, something to that effect. Because I spent a lot of time on the ambulance fund aspect, and I'm not seeing it here. But I don't have it with me to
It's
be able to
on the
pull it up.
bottom. Do you want to?
Yep, exactly. That's it. Thank you.
oh, so those numbers are there.
They are there. Just not on the one that I gave you.
You know, I know we want to get through this, but I'm not sure it's fair to the public to try to explain this on the fly here.
I think you need another public hearing.
I think that's what I'm going to, I just like to make that suggestion only because this, in my mind, is too important to just rush and maybe not have a complete understanding. And I have to say, I agree. I remember you talking about some of this stuff. And then when I looked at this one, I was thinking,
kept looking at it, I'm like,
yeah,
especially when you point out, or whoever it was who pointed out, I left off all of the ambulance fund things. I'm like, I know I did this. So, my fault.
yeah,
My apologies.
well, that's,
I have it. If I had uploaded, I could download a copy so you could at least see it.
Is that
but-
something that you would be able to do so that
Oh,
it
yeah.
can be posted on the town's website?
Yes.
And we can print it off from there,
Yes.
which is what I did before I came, but it's
Exactly,
a nice
yes.
copy, so.
So,
Anyway.
but if you have specific questions tonight, if you want to look at Jeff's copy, has those numbers on there. Chair Joe has a copy as well.
Oh, big difference.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lordy, what a big difference. Okay.
oh, actually, I believe I have that version in Excel here.
Well, just for anybody,
But, you know, we're not even sure I got the right version. And
Right.
you don't know if you've got that
Exactly.
particular version or the latest version of what he... Joe, I'm real nervous
two or
about
three
trying to...
well, you're making good suggestions, and we need to, I think, follow up a little further with some more information that would be more illuminating. Ginger has made a number of
Good point.
valuable comments, and I think, as Bob has just referred to this older sheet, it does contain an amortization schedule. It's what's the category? It's tentative, better word,
Right.
Bob, that at $334,000 some odd per year going forth, which is trying to cover a $2 million potential, not necessarily decided on yet, expenditure along with the rehab of the Narrows, which is an $800,000+ item, which the chief, was the only thing he talked about when he was here. That's not right. It's not the only thing he talked about, but that was the major item that he talked about. He talked about a whole number of other things, defibrillators and equipment, radios and so forth. But those numbers are big and valuable to know, and people, this is a planning tool for those people out there that have an interest, and especially as for myself, if you're not great with spreadsheets or anything like that, to see some consolidation of what different departments in this town are talking about going forward to with their budgets and how it will impact us. And the effort of the CIP is to even things out so that we don't go like a roller coaster up and down from year to year, and everybody's in shock one year and celebrating maybe the next year. I don't know if you ever celebrate taxes that you get.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe you do.
But at least it's evened out for whatever the town is deciding it wants to go forward with, what it wants to accomplish. Roads, ambulances, fire engines, and maybe a new fire station, so forth. All of those things are spread out here. I'm just saying this for those people that might be listening. And it would be great, I would just add at this point, though we have an overwhelming audience tonight to comment on this, and maybe you didn't get an opportunity, if you're out there listening, to either come tonight or have something to say about it. And apparently we're going to do a little more updating on what this CIP is showing. But if you have comments and you can't make meetings, please make your voice heard in whatever fashion. Coming to a meeting would be ideal, but emailing us and so forth at the town. So having said that, what more would you like to add, Bob, at this point?
I do have two other comments.
Yes, please.
If I could. I would urge, since these are our town, I would, and whether this is the right place to say this or not, I don't know, but I would urge looking at both the highway and the fire department and the number of articles or purchases that are being proposed for the funding to come out of capital reserve funds or ambulance fund, that you do some deep research on what is allowed to come out of those funds. They were very specific when they were set up, and I just don't think a boat or an ATV can come out of the ambulance fund. As an example, I'm just suggesting it.
Walter's pretty strict about that. I'll remind him, but man, he's checked up on a lot of these things already, but we'll be real specific,
and
Ginger.
I'll be listening to, I'll go back and listen to the meeting on August 12th, I believe you said, to see what explanations there might have been for things as to why 2 forestry trucks and why this, that, and whatever. So.
And if not, we'll ask those questions at the budget meetings.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ginger Dole.
Sorry. That's a good opportunity for me to reiterate something I've told to the planning board since I adopted the CIP project when I was chair, is that right now this is largely a one-person effort, which is fine. I'm certainly willing to do it. But I'm also strongly opposed to knowledge or data silos, and there needs to be more of a shared effort so that this project can continue if I choose not to do it some year. So I'm not pointing the finger at the planning board. It is your responsibility to cover it, but in whatever means you find most appropriate. But I think with some input from our town administrator on what is allowed to come from certain projects, some other changes that the planning board chair, Mr. Jandeber, has discussed, we can spread the load a little bit off my shoulders. I'm still glad to do the financial end, but there's other stuff that needs to have some other people's input.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Bob. Bob has put in he's the primary source of this data we have, or the organizing of it. He's not responsible for the data, but and it's been quite a contribution, because I don't know that anybody else on the planning board was up to the job or wanted it, but we do need some backup, because going forward there's going to be, whether Bob's available, wants to do it, but there's other people that have to be familiar with this and knowledgeable about it. And of course that's part of the select board's consideration, and I know there's some thought being given. What do you have to say, Al?
I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, and it was really important.
Well,
it'll come back to
try
me.
to start talking again, then you'll come.
Yeah, try it.
Yes, James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also wanted to just say into the record, I had sent you all an email earlier today. One thing that we've discussed about that is not included in here is future paving of the roads. And the town is working with Stratford Regional Planning Commission on a road surface management system, RSMS.
Correct.
Report that would be looking at current pavement conditions and forecasting what roads should be repaved when. I am not directly involved with that project, but I followed up with the program staff who are and asked for a brief update on where things stand, so I just wanted to share that into the record. According to Stephen, they had their first forecasting meeting last week, so forecasting out what repairs would need to happen at what time. They're starting with summer 22 repairs and forecasting out until 2026. At that first meeting, they completed about 1.5 years worth of forecasting out of those 5 years. Walter was going to be out of the office this week, so instead he was going to be following up with the state asset management database to see if Northwood could get direct access to that, because it does have information about, in addition to road quality, also sidewalks and culverts. My understanding is that the state does not grant that access to the municipalities, so that won't be possible. Stephen should still have access, but it's, that information is going to have to just sort of flow awkwardly back and forth through him, unfortunately. So he was planning to follow up with the committee about a meeting next week. Current estimate for completing that project would be mid-October, finishing the forecasting. The report would probably not be available until late October or early November. So I think we had talked previously about, for this year, that RSMS report might need to stand alone and might not be available to be completely worked into the CIP, but the goal would definitely be to have it fully integrated with next year's process for sure.
Thanks, James. And I'd like to make just a couple of questions here I have, and any other board members that might. I have looked at just the James sending out this email, and I have to admit I'm essentially unfamiliar with this process, having been in existence, at least as I'm picking up on it. Maybe I misunderstand it. Just a minor item, you said that you wanted access to some degrees. Apparently there's some issue is them being, what do we want to call this at NHDOT, of giving you a heads up as to when upcoming meetings are occurring. You're saying
it's not a meeting issue. SRPC can get into the SAIDS database. So the database it's an asset management database. So we do a lot of data collection for NHDOT. We do culvert assessments and things like that. So when we go out and we assess a culvert and we look at what's the condition of the culvert, what are the conditions for aquatic organism passage, things like that. That data gets entered into the SAIDS database eventually. It all sort of feeds into the same system. The regional planning commissions who do that data collection and who assist with those kinds of projects, we also do the 10-year plan as the MPO for transportation projects. We can generally access that system ourselves. The issue was that we were hoping that other committee members, Bob, Walter, would be able to get direct access to the system themselves, so they could look at it and they could prepare. And the state said no, they don't want to grant full access directly to municipalities. I think in part because there are a lot of municipalities in New Hampshire, and that's just a lot of people with questions, people who need to be trained on the system, people who could potentially cause data breaches or delete something depending on their permissions, or so I think they want to keep the database to a smaller group of people. So it wasn't so much that we can't get the information. It's just that they are telling us the regional planning commission staff need to be the ones who can facilitate that access and sort of compile it and present it to the committee. Bob can't just go in and poke around on his own.
But as a comment on that, when I worked for UNHT Squared on RSMS, I'm extremely familiar with it. So
So you've
that's part of
access,
the reason I had discussed with, not Walter,
so you've access at Stratford Regional.
Stephen. Because I was familiar with it, I didn't need any training on how to do it and could get questions. But
The state
I can
does
certainly
not care.
I know. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Okay. Regarding this, I'm wondering to what degree, as I'm reading this, and I'm just reading into it perhaps, but they have a 5-year plan you're referring to, or at least they're, or even projecting further than that, 5-year plan for road improvement in a given community, in Northwood in this case. To what extent does that take the authority or the control from Northwood? If they're generating a plan, is it merely for the use of Northwood, or does it
is
have
for the use of Northwood.
Okay.
So this is a planning document, and essentially my understanding of how RSMS typically works, you start with an assessment of the existing conditions of the pavement. What does the road look like today? You factor in things like how many cars go down there regularly, what kind of wear and tear would you expect on that road, and the output is, all other things equal, forget about the budgeting, forget about arguments about whose road should come first, just strictly looking at if we were to do things according to what is likely to wear out first.
Now this was done.
What would the next 5 years of road improvements look like?
This was done, was it not, Bob, back when you were going through the 5-year plan that you generated?
Yes.
Okay.
Exact same process.
Okay. And so it becomes useful information for a given town to have this, obviously. Previous to that, it was the town's own judgment, I take it. I mean, I'm not even familiar with exactly, I am a little, but what occurred here, I mean, the select board essentially made decisions on which roads they were going to repair or generate anew. So I'm just, so this is an advisory thing. What does this cost us in?
Zero.
This comes to us because we're members of the Stratford Regional.
And I'm volunteering my time.
Pardon?
And I'm volunteering my time, and
okay, in
the
your
road
case.
agent and Walter are also involved.
But this plan that's being referred to here, are you involved in that too?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, you're volunteering your time. Thank
So
you.
my understanding is that the RPCs are currently able to do sort of a first RSMS report for a dues-paying community for free under our UPWP, our existing transportation planning money. I think if Northwood were to want another one done in the future, the way things stand right now, we might not be able to do a future one for free. DOT might say, well, you're just doing these plans for towns over and over again. They need to kick in some money.
Why does DOT come into play here? If it's
DOT is where our money comes from. So right now, essentially who is paying for the work on the plan, we are doing the work. We're using our existing DOT funding to be able to pay for that time.
I see.
But Joe,
Yes.
part of this is we haven't had the plan updated for years and years. The idea going forward is we do it right this time, and then we keep it up to date. We don't let it fall out of date.
Now, I realize it ran out about what? You did the 5-year plan how long ago when you did it? About 8 years ago, 9, or?
I think more than that. I think it was
It's 12.
2012? That's what I was
it's
thinking. It was
12.
2012.
2012?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it was 12, well, 12 years
Well, that is
ago.
8 years.
Yeah, 12 years ago.
Oh,
Whatever that
12
is.
years ago, okay.
Yeah, okay. I knew I was between jobs, so.
But, I mean, just to
All right,
to
and that
make
was a
point on
5-year
this,
plan.
it's-
Yep.
You know, the plan didn't just talk about what you do in 5 years. It listed all the roads.
Yes.
So even though maybe in year 6 or 7, you didn't have it updated, you pretty much had a list from, you know, A to Z as to which were likely to deteriorate sooner rather than later and so on. So you had at least some guidance.
Yeah, it had a future value,
And
yeah.
then the select boards would look at them and say, okay, yeah, this one definitely is on the top of the list and it's bad, so we better do it. But I think the key thing is that over the years we've tried to be reasonably consistent so we don't fall behind, because then it's just hard to catch up. But
Sure.
if we miss something, that's where having it updated every year so we don't lose track of or see something that's maybe failing quicker than it should, or something that we can get on it right away and save us money in the long run. You know? So we're definitely, at least this select board is definitely thinking that this plan is going to get done right and then kept up to date.
Just having said that, does it need to be updated every year, or is that every 2
Well, the
years?
road
or what's-
conditions change every year. You just never know how they're going to go. I mean, we may find out after we do it for a couple years that, no, you don't need to do it every single year, but we are not going to let it just fall off the edge here. We're going to keep at it till we know that we're doing it right.
When this program was hosted at UNH T Squared, and it was my area of responsibility, if I had to venture a expert guess, about every 4 years, a town would contract with T Squared college students, UNH civil engineers, to do their road assessment and then develop.
Every
a plan.
4 years, do you give an overall?
On average, every 4 years, they would revisit their plan. But that was also at a cost of anywhere between $4,000 and $6,000 per time. So,
All right,
having
thanks.
it for free, having it paid for by state level, every year I think is a little excessive for the amount of work that's done in the road assessment. But every 2, every 3 years, that's enough to catch any changes.
I know we don't do 6 a year. So
Yeah.
between our 18 municipalities,
Yeah.
we're not, either the bigger ones can do it all themselves, which is likely, or other communities of a similar size to Northwood also are not updating these every 3 or 4 years right now. But if the board is still a little confused or interested or curious as to what exactly you are going to get out of this, I believe the most recent one that we did was for New Durham. If you'd like to just see an example.
Durham?
New Durham.
New Durham.
I should be able to find it and forward it around so you can at least see what the report's going to look like, what kind of information is going to be in it.
I appreciate that, James. I don't know, any other comment on that? It seems like useful information, and just so we know.
I'm waiting for
little
ours.
bit. Huh?
I'm waiting for ours, Joe. It's a couple months away.
Can I make a comment here?
Yeah.
I
Not
live in
sure.
a condo complex. Obviously, it's gigantically smaller than this town, but I have about 2 miles of road that I have to be concerned about. And over the last 3 or 4 years, I've gone to great pains to look at the surface in different places of that road, and it makes a big difference on what you repair first. and not allowing things to deteriorate, and the type of asphalt that is used. There are so many variables, and for us, it is such a gigantic expense. When I look at my overall expense, so the point that I'm making is a road plan for this town is critical.
Right.
To understand the conditions of every one of these roads, what kind of asphalt has been put on there, what it looks like, all the obvious stuff that you know, how much traffic, what kind of traffic. I mean, that makes it, I'll give you one thing and one last thing and I'll shut up. I have many curves in this area. I had to make sure that the type of asphalt that I used were the Federal Express trucks and the other trash trucks and the other big heavy trucks, that asphalt was better than just a straight run or where people are parking. It is much more complicated than, it's too important not to have a serious plan. That's my point. It's too much of an expense. There's too many roads, and you'll end up paying twice as much if you don't have a plan, a realistic plan with all those considerations.
So you're cautioning against penny wise, pound foolish.
Well, you better repair things, fix what needs fixing. That's what I say.
Yep. Sure, Hal. What?
I'd like to make 2 points, if I may, Joe.
Make three.
To build on what Mr. Curry said, we've typically spent $300,000 to $400,000 a year on roads, and if you look at Bob's extended numbers for the CIP, that is a huge portion of, and the roads aren't on the CIP. I mean, just look at the CIP. Order of magnitude is $600,000, and we're spending $400,000. It's one of our biggest expenses.
It is our biggest expenditure, I think, outside of salaries.
Yeah.
Am I?
Probably is. But the other point I want to make is I
Schools.
remembered what I was going to say earlier.
Good.
And that is there any reason why we can't make public what the original documents were that the department heads submitted? Don't they have a sheet?
They are public. They were emailed to the planning board.
Yeah, I mean, like Ginger, could we make copies for her or put copies on the...
We do.
I think that would...
Perhaps they should go on the website for everybody.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that would at least get you started. Then you'd have something to refer to when you're going through the meeting as opposed to just trying to scribble down notes. And yeah, if we can, yeah, I mean, they're public.
I have the email somewhere.
With all the...
Sure. Now they think I got the numbers to go in the CIP.
Okay.
I have it on my computer.
Well, then let's just do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Any other thoughts or comments?
One other comment. It was mentioned earlier, when you go through this again after you revised it, I think the department head should be here to field questions. There were questions that would have come up tonight if you'd had this ready to go. And I don't think it would hurt to have the department heads again here to say, okay, is this true? Is that true? Do we have something to add to this? Can we refine this? I mean, we asked them questions a month ago when they were here. And there were some questions that were brand new questions to them at that time. And if we're going to review this again, then I think it wouldn't hurt to have these people here to field questions.
I think it's not a bad suggestion. Ginger suggested much the same, I think, a little earlier. Just and your remark about the roads, there's two elements there, maybe more, but there's certainly regarding the quality of what you're going forth with, and the quality of the material is one of them that the town, and I think this has been a failing of us, and this is not our job at planning board, but a failing has been where you might plan to do a road on a schedule, but the quality of that road that you do has everything to do with whether that money is just wasted and you're going to be doing it again in 3 years. And I can point to roads, this is the case, they're delaminating right now and they were only done within the past 3 years. And That's because the job was not adequate. Let me just put it that way. Whatever the fault is there, I think follow through and maybe selecting the right people on a whole number of issues. But this has been, we spend money, however much or little, and in all cases, I would observe that maybe it should be done with as much quality as we can possibly get, because that's how you don't have to come back and do it again. Roads are supposed to have, depending, 5 and 10 years life, depending on quality. But anyway, that said, I think, unless somebody has any other remark, we're at the end of our public hearing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
If the board would like to take any additional input from the public, it has to occur as part of a public hearing. So the easiest way to do that is to continue tonight's public hearing to a date and time certain.
All right, that's a good suggestion.
If I could make a suggestion on that as well. We tentatively have scheduled for the CIP to go to the Board of Selectmen on
What is our deadline there?
October.
I believe.
We had said we'd vote on it.
That agenda, and they're getting into a very busy time with their budgets. So what I'm going to suggest is that we meet next Thursday night, either that or the 7th, but you're getting close to the Columbus Day weekend. I don't know how that affects anybody, but James is not available on our work session on the 14th. He has another commitment. And we...
I'm not available next week.
Are you available on the 30th
Not
or
on the 30th.
7th?
I can do the 7th.
Well, it's going to be a critical component whether Bobby can go.
That's why I state it now. I can do the 7th.
October 7th.
Well, as we know, we have a
And
quorum.
our regular meeting, the work session would have been what,
The 14th.
14th?
I would assume we'd still have that?
Yes.
I would assume we'd still be on the 14th?
Based on it, didn't we?
Would we not meet maybe on the 14th if we
Oh,
had the
yes, we
7th?
have,
Yeah.
Not in paper.
we have Chestnut and Cape on that night.
Yeah, so we have to meet on this, yeah, and I think it's better not to overlap this stuff.
Do we have formally cases
We have a
scheduled
case
for the
scheduled
14th?
For the 14th.
Yes. So this is an additional meeting on the 7th as a possibility to hear any further public comment. And then maybe, can we follow through with Dwayne's suggestion that we ask the
Invite
department
them.
heads? Any thought on that from anybody? Good idea? What?
Let's see how Walter wants to handle it. He may want to come and summarize.
What?
Let's see how Walter wants to handle it. He can decide whether he and other representatives come or whether maybe he represents them. On this kind of notice, they might not be available. I mean, it's a little bit away, but this isn't that far away.
Yes, it is close, but how would he be a representative of the fire department or the police or whatever?
Walter should know what they're doing.
Well, I mean, currently, I mean, the issue is what's the most up to date here at this point, because we've had a few little changes, or at least the added perspective. Isn't that what? I mean, we heard from Ginger's comments tonight, her observations that there's some missing elements here, just as far as all the information that
Most of the information has been added to the version that I have, that I've just sent you the wrong one. So,
I think there's two parts to, I was interpreting it as two parts, Joe. One is what Bob just talked about, which is Ginger feels, and I think we all agreed, I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but there was numbers missing here.
Yep,
And he has a version where those numbers are now listed.
that was the older one.
That's why I said I think we need to pause, because nobody had a chance to look at those prior to the meeting.
Are they identical, Bob, to the older numbers?
No. I mean, the requests are. The left-hand
different.
side of the sheet is, the requests are the same. The analysis that you have up there that's in, is very different from what was posted for this, and my apologies on that. I
Okay.
have been having a week of Mondays, and this is another one.
So that's the one aspect of it. Then there was the aspect where Ginger said maybe there's some other information related to the projects, and Wayne echoed that point. And to that point, I'm saying, why don't we ask Walter how he wants to handle it? Because it's kind of short notice, and maybe the department heads already have stuff planned, maybe they don't. And so maybe Walter will want to represent them, or maybe he'll just tell them. But let's let that up to Walter as to how to handle those types of questions, as opposed to dictate it, because it's, if it was a month away, I wouldn't be as adamant about it, but
I see your point, Al, as far as this is short notice and there's a problem maybe getting everybody, or at least the key players here to be able to come. I'm just wondering if Walter's a sufficient source.
Can I add a comment to that? I support Selectman Kreider's statement wholeheartedly, and the reason is that in good faith, the department heads came to the time that they were asked to come, and it's available on a video.
Some did, yeah.
And for the town to incur the cost, and there would be a cost involved. You have all these department heads come back, and they're all going to be on the clock. Not that is the determining factor, but that should be up to the town administrator whether or not people are called in for additional hours.
So you're saying the town administrator idea is good for efficiency in this case, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
I think defer to Walter. He's paid to make those decisions.
That would give him time to be
Yes.
briefed by department heads during the day to prepare.
Okay.
And potentially make a decision if he needed somebody else to be with him.
Well, that's a good point. Dwayne, does that sound good from your perspective of your concerns? Yep.
So I'd make a motion to continue the public hearing to October 7th.
Second,
All right, we have a motion on the floor to continue the public hearing for any input from the public and, the public, any officials, to October 7th.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Motion passes. So October 7th, and it'll be a meeting at 6:30 regular time, I take it. All right. I think we're past the CIP considerations at this point. If not, somebody can point it out to me. But
Oh, definitely.
we have any internal business that's...
We do.
Does everybody have a copy of the
Thank you, Ginger.
proposed budget in front of them?
Say
I do
again?
not. Where is that at, Linda? I'm sorry.
Oh, I see. Lee, do you have one? Yes.
Yes, we do.
Sure. I'll send a copy of it.
Thank you.
Something's missing here.
I'm going to take the mask off so I can talk.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night, Ginger.
Good night.
James, what do we need to consider here? Is this a matter of passing tonight, approval, or further consideration?
This one's all Linda. I'll let her tell you.
Okay, yes, we do need to, I would like your feedback and confirmation on the numbers that are proposed on the budget worksheet. I'll start at the top. and I'll try to be very brief, but feel free to jump in and answer any questions. If you look at we have 2018, 19, and 20 budget and actual, and then if we look at 2021, we have the requested budget, which is what you requested last year, and then, as you know, we have the defaults, and then the actual to-date expenditures. So starting with the legal line, that line has $1 in it. The reason for that is a number of years ago, the selectmen decided to, rather than have legal funds in different departments, planning and zoning, which were ones that had fairly large legal amounts, that rather than estimate in various departments, to have one line, and the other departments would have $1 to keep the line open, but expenditures to that department are shown in that department's expenditure line. So even though we estimate $1, there's funds in the Board of Selectmen's legal fund that will offset the expenditures.
So all money that's in the Board of Selectmen's legal fund is available for the various departments?
Correct.
Planning and zoning,
Yeah.
you mentioned,
Yes,
as need be?
as needed, yes.
All right.
Okay.
So just a question on that. If planning board expends legal funds, does that show as a negative balance on the planning board's
Yes,
lines?
it does.
Okay,
Yes, it
curious.
does.
Thank you.
So Bob's question, if I understand, you were saying if we had a $10,000 bill that we had to pay legal, that's now a
We're
negative?
overspent by that much in our budget,
Correct.
but it's offset by funds that are setting in their legal.
When that occurs, does the planning board have to make that up later, the following year?
No. No, it's
In a
just for
request?
convenience in budgeting.
Okay.
Okay, the GIS cost share, that $400 was a annual license fee for the GIS that is on a laptop that we have. We have not used it in the last few years, much at all. Had a discussion with our town administrator, who feels it may be best, if we need that type of work done, to just contract it out. So I would like to change that, however. That's the only line I realized afterwards I'd like to change, and I'd like to just put $1 in that line rather than 0. Should any change occur that we do need to get that license, it would,
I was okay until you added that $1, Linda.
oh no.
So
Just to keep the line open, should there be an expense related to GIS for the planning board?
So just to be clear, we're taking line 333 GIS cost share for requested of $400, default budget of $400, and making it $1
Correct.
for both?
No, you're
Sure.
taking the far right column, 2022 department fund.
Right.
Oh, whoops, sorry, yes. Oh, that's why I didn't see it. My hand was over it. Thank you.
Okay, printing and advertising, 1,500, which is an estimate. That includes our newspaper advertising, which is increased quite a bit since we do no longer have a weekly paper in town. However, it also is dependent on how many cases we have and the types of cases, how much that might cost, and it also covers if we need to advertise changes to the zoning ordinance, or if you were to make need a public hearing for subdivision changes, some general legal advertising. As you can see, looking back in 2019, that was the actual expenditure was over 2,000, and it's just something hard to predict. So 1,500 has consistently been a number that seems to.
Where's the principal place we've been advertising, Linda?
Seacoast Online, Foster's.
Seacoast
Daily
Online.
Democrat.
Yep.
And contracted services, this has changed, the budget's changed so that these two are flipped, but 331 contracted services, the $600 covers an estimate of the cost of recording plans or any voluntary mergers at the Registry of Deeds. And the reason that's separated out is because that basically there's revenue that comes against that.
Right.
Not that it matters for budgeting, but just to keep it separate as to know that that's a line that is offset by revenue. Okay, 330 contracted services. What I have put in here for this year is the requested budget that was approved by the Board of Selectmen last year for Stratford Regional for $32,000 for our planning services, and $2,400 for our annual costs for the Access GIS online map services through cartographics. I will say that that number, the $32,000 for Stratford Regional, has not been either discussed or confirmed yet by the Board of Selectmen as far as approving a contract, so that is an estimate I'm putting in there based on last year's approval. Supplies, line 620. And what happened to the line? I can't see over here. There's nothing. Why is that?
Linda,
Excuse me, Linda, are you just showing the difference at 2,400, that it might be back to 34.4, or is that, you have,
2,400 is
GIS.
GIS.
That's a different annual contract. It's two separate amounts.
The 34.4 consists of the two below.
that's current, or was,
No, for the budget on the far right.
yeah.
The 34.4 is made up of 32,000 for James's service
Oh,
and 2,400 for the
Okay.
GIS.
so it is the sum of the two.
It's the sum of the two.
Yep.
The sum of those two gives you the 3,400.
Okay.
34,000, sorry.
I can see this was not carried over. There should be 450 added to the supply line. That is not on there, and I think that happened because of whatever that is on here. So that does need to be added. Postage. That is being reduced from oh, that was changed last year to $1. It was, the default is $7.50. I did have a discussion with the finance specialist the other day who asked about why is there $750 in those lines. And the reason is very similar to the legal, was that, but somewhat different. It was the opposite. In that the copy machine used to actually, I'm sorry, not the copy machine, the postage machine used to allocate by department what the expenses were for outgoing mail.
Right.
The current postage meter is not set up for that, so all of the expenses are paid based on a line in the budget. So we're going to again recommend $1 so that all of that money comes out of one line that the selectmen have. Because we only have one amount of postage coming out of the postage meter. It doesn't break it down by department
How do we know
anymore.
what our share is?
You don't.
We don't.
No.
Correct.
You just, The town's paying it either way.
Well, we and other departments. You're saying it's all combined in several
one.
departments?
Right, it's all combined.
So we're just chipping in a fair
We're
amount?
keeping $1 in the line so that we can show the expenditure. But we can't show the expenditure, you're right. But
In the event we learn how to allocate, we might do that.
In the days of, in this wonderful age of computers, we don't have any way to,
well, there is a way to do it, and if you want to know all the details, I'll briefly tell you. What happens is that a person goes in to read the numbers. Let's say they do it in June 30th. They go back for 6 months. They read it, and what's happened, and it may not happen in the future, but because of turnover of staff, the person who went in resets it, and it takes out all the codes. So I think what our selectman is saying is it may be something that will be addressed internally in the future that may be handled in a way to go back so that we know what each department's doing.
All we have to care about at this point for our planning board purposes is the postage covered or not? It is.
And we're putting $1 in there in the case that it could be something that's brought up and set up differently in the future.
well, I guess since you're saying this, so is it possible the planning board could get charged the whole postage bill? I mean, I'm exaggerating a point.
No.
So,
No, it's going to either be 0 or the actual postage, not anything other than those two options.
okay, I'm going to
Okay?
not ask anything further here.
Next
because
item is
I could have been using that, I might have been the one that messed it up, but since I didn't.
Stratford
not.
Regional Planning Commission dues, put in 5,400 as an estimate. I will be getting an exact number more than likely.
I believe they decided around 4:30 today.
Oh, well.
Level fund dues for this year.
Okay.
Linda, go back up to equipment, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. Yes. Equipment purchase, $500. Now, there's several departments within the town, I mean, within my departments that have an equipment line, and that's basically a cost share for, let's say, Susan's needs a new file cabinet in our department. She says, well, we need a new file cabinet at $650. $500 might come out of planning board, $150 out of zoning board for a new piece of equipment. It isn't going to cover any large expenditures such as a computer, but that's something that's under the Board of Selectmen and their technology plan as far as replacing that. So it's more has to do with smaller amounts of equipment.
And you were just saying, James, that the SRPC has decided on,
We were going to level fund our dues for this year. We were not going to increase
so it
over
last,
2020. So the actual, my understanding is that the actual dues number will remain the same as it did in 2020.
which was 5364, I guess.
Okay, and I can make that adjustment when I,
I can
That's-
make sure and confirm that and have that sent around, but that's my understanding.
yeah, as soon as I have that actual number, I can just plug it in before it goes to
So 48
finance.
4,800 was the actual dues, and then there's some other fees
No,
involved?
no, you're looking at the line number. There's something here
This
that,
is the account number.
This is the account.
Actual in 2020
Oh.
was 5364.
5364, okay, thank you.
Linda, I'm jumping back up to the contracted services. James, at one point, we were doing the contract based on the person that was here, i.e., Matt Sullivan or whoever was X dollars per hour, and he was going to work Y hours, so the contract was this. And then I thought we switched to a more generic billing where you're getting somebody at this level.
So we charge all of our circuit rider contracts the same rate.
Circuit rider, yeah.
So
Is that going up?
The example this year is Nottingham. We had a planner who was doing Nottingham contract. She took a new position in May. So Jen was filling in, I was filling in, and then we finally hired somebody, and he's starting this month on their contract. So they received the same an invoice for the same rate, regardless of whether it was Steph, who was just a regional planner one, or me, I'm a senior planner, or Jen, our executive director. They were charged at the same rate.
So that general rate that we're charged this year, is there an expectation that that will go up?
I am not sure about our billing rates, but
That we should check, because that may affect what we want to put in that.
Right, I think that discussion would be a separate discussion. I put the level funded in here until such time. Generally, that occurs towards the end of October when they have a
They'll
better,
come back. Okay,
a better, well, you'll have to sign a contract
yeah, well, that's what I
with
was
them.
asking.
And then at that
Okay.
point, the number will reflect that contract.
Okay,
Right, they're not actually renewed till December 31st. So we usually go a little bit later in the year, better
That's a hard
understanding
number.
of projections.
okay.
Okay, line 820 is training, $1,000. We didn't use much this year, but we could have a turnover and have new people that want to go to the classes, so I think it's reasonable to keep a fair amount in there. The Board of Selectmen have always supported the idea of whatever the amount in there is. If people want to go and there's not enough funds, they will try to find funds somewhere else, that they strongly support training of staff and volunteers. And travel 830, the travel line is for staff only, for when we have to be on official business for the town. And that is not our contracted planner, but Susan and I. And that's generally only for if we have to go to Manchester for a workshop or that type of thing. So if we add the 450, add $1, I've got 44,054 as a recommended budget.
I thought we only added $1, Linda. Did we add $2? You were at 602, and then add 451.
Oh, okay, $2 in the cost, in the GIS? Just to make it 55? I don't know what you're...
No, I was just saying, I added 450 plus the one you added up at the top.
451,
I've got 44,054.
I only get 45,053. Not a big difference, but
we're adding the other one.
Yeah, there's only-
Oh, I see. I wrote it down 43,603 rather than 602. Good catch, Al.
Well, that's because you added it up top, but then
Right.
you added 451. Yeah. Okay.
Then I added it again.
That's probably
So 44,053. Thank you.
close enough till we know the contract, right?
Pardon?
Probably this is as good as we're going to get till we know the contract
Correct.
rate.
But this gives the board an opportunity, if they would like to recommend any other numbers, they...
I wish that dollar were the greatest of our concerns. in the town
Yeah.
budget, but anybody have any added additions? All right, is this appropriate to vote on this tonight, to pass
Sure,
it?
just
Yeah.
state your support of that number, that would be great.
Would somebody like to make a motion regarding accepting the just considered budget for the planning board?
I make a motion that we vote in recommendation of the 2022 Planning Board budget request for a total of $44,000 or $44,053.
Second, I didn't mention that before, did I? The motion proposed by Mr. Strobel and seconded by Ms. Smith. What? Ms. B. Smith, just so we're not confused with anybody else.
No,
All
we
in
have
favor?
discussion. No, I want to discuss.
Discussion
What is that?
first.
Already discussed it.
Well, that's a good point. Any just further discussion?
Yeah, I would like to, I think we should bump it up a little bit because my expectation is Stratford Regional Planning is going to ask for an increase.
Well, James just said that they were going to hold for this year.
The dues are going to hold, not his hourly rate. And my expectation is everybody's having trouble holding on to their people. My expectation is they're going to give
There's
raises.
some inflation here.
I don't want to get into politics. I'm
That's not
just saying,
politics, that's economics.
whatever you want to call it. I'm just saying, if I was a betting man, and I am, I would bet that number of 32,000 is too low.
Now, what do you think it's going to be pushed by mostly? Not the $1 postage, but what else?
By them having to pay their people somewhat more to retain them. If you look through all the municipal stuff, there's a tremendous churn right now, and there's a tremendous challenge holding on to folks.
All right.
And so on that basis, I'm thinking that it's going to be very difficult for Stratford Regional Planning to not increase their hourly rates to all their towns. And with that in mind, I think the 32,000 is too low for two reasons. The one, their rates are going to go up, and two, I think we're going to have a busy year next year. I mean, there's all indications that things are going to break loose, and if we don't have enough hours, then we're in trouble.
What would you suggest?
I'd suggest going up to an even $45,000 as a minimum.
Over the 32,000.
The overall budget.
Oh,
Why is that?
gee whiz. Holy
I
smokes.
wasn't thinking about that big a raise,
I was
James.
thinking 5%. You're like, whoa.
No, I'm only one of five, and we don't have a
We're
quorum.
at $44,053, and you're
I'm
suggesting?
suggesting you go up to 45,000 even.
That's, okay, that's,
Just
I'll say only 1,000 more, but,
It's only 2%.
Mr. Chairman,
Short money.
if I could respond to our selectmen.
Sure.
With all due respect to our selectmen, this is the department head's recommended number, and I would suggest that he take that thought with
Part of
him when the
discussion, yes.
selectman meets with the department head.
Yes.
And when we have additional input that I don't have at this time from Stratford Regional as to whether their numbers are going to change. And at that point, that number would change.
What
I
she
think
said-
that's
We're
a,
kind of,
what she
that's a
said-
reasonable observation,
But
and
we don't
rather
have the
than,
information yet.
yes, rather than shooting in the dark here, let's just
wait.
stay where,
I mean, it could very well be that or beyond that, but when we have the numbers, that would be the,
You're here tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
Just an explanation. I'm looking at the actual numbers here for for that service contract. So in 2018, it was 25.3, and then 39.7 in 2019, 29,201. So it's variable. Is it based on the number of hours that they work? It's not a flat fee?
When we set up our contract, it's set up as a not to exceed.
Oh, okay.
So you only pay us for the time that I actually put in.
Okay,
But we do have the contractual, we will go up to
that number.
32,000. And actually in 2020, we had to have discussions because the town went to a default budget, that we had already executed the contract, and we had to discuss at the end of the year how we were going to reconcile a contract that was above the default budget that was
Right.
actually approved, and trying to get through the end of the year when we were quite busy.
I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
And I would certainly want to make it clear that I'm not in any way objecting to the thought of the comment, but
Are you speaking on James's behalf? Or, I say, are you speaking on James's behalf? Or no? The thought.
the thought that this may be very necessary to increase that, but I would rather wait until we have numbers and
Sure. That makes
information
sense.
from them as to what that number might be.
That's a good observation. All right. So we're there was a
Discussing a motion.
suggestion that. Pardon?
There's a motion on the floor.
To move the question.
I'm voting.
You're voting.
You voting?
So
Okay.
all in favor to accept the budget as just presented at $44,053 with a conceivable modification in the future based on the town father's wise considerations.
Aye.
All,
Aye.
so we have, and I'm aye, so we have 100% in favor.
But you don't know that if you don't ask for any nays. Or abstentions. Just to,
Trying to get them to move along.
I know.
Are we, any other internal business we want to consider? Holiday meeting schedule?
Yes. Because of budget sessions coming up and a variety of other things, we need to select dates now for November. Our two November meetings are both holidays.
Correct.
One is Veterans Day and the other is Thanksgiving. Would it be appropriate to move to the 1st and the 3rd
The first of the month?
for that?
First Thursday.
First.
So that would be November 4 and November 18.
I don't know if you want to plan on individual, but I have a conflict on the 4th, but if you can get a quorum, I'd move ahead.
Is it possible to notice new business that comes in November for the 18th?
Oh, timing was, in terms of when they come in.
Yes. Yes, it would.
It would need to run by the 7th, then.
Yeah.
So it comes in on Monday. and you get
What is
the
the
paper
second?
pretty quick.
We're not closed on some of these holidays I never heard of. No, that should be fine. Susan, are you comfortable with that?
What is that? What is that?
If a new case was filed in November, we would need to have time to do sufficient legal notice by the 18th. So 10 days notice, we can't count the day of the meeting or the day the notice runs, so it's really 12. Any legal public notice would have to run on Sunday the 7th or earlier.
So where does that put us?
That puts us, that we can do it. Susan said she's comfortable, she can get it done by then.
Okay, so what are the dates now you're suggesting?
4th and the 18th, I think Betty made a motion.
Pardon?
No, it was a question. Would that work? You want a motion? So moved.
Second.
And what is the motion?
What she just said.
What she just said. What did you just say, Linda?
To move the meeting for November that would regularly be scheduled on Thursday, November 11th and Thursday, November 25th, to instead schedule them for the first and third Thursdays of the month, being November 4th and November 18th.
18th, all right. So we're,
Stated by Mr. Gordine.
Ms. Betty Smith is now proposing, or the motion is to, well, if you've heard, there are seconds? Did we get a second on that?
Yes, we did, Mr. Kreider.
Ryder.
Okay. Sorry, didn't hear that. So what is the vote of the board?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so in December, we have, the meeting would be
Motion
scheduled,
passes.
the meeting would be scheduled on December 23rd. There are 5 Thursdays in December. On the 23rd, I am not available. Period, end of story.
Sound pretty firm about that, Betty.
The, holiday is actually celebrated on the 24th for anyone that works here or typically,
That has the day off.
right, anybody that would have the day off. It's typically bumped back the day before when it falls on a Saturday.
So, same question, if we're considering the 16th, can we make legal notice? That one's going to be even tighter.
Oof, that would be really tight. We could have it the 30th of December, but then that's, oh, that doesn't matter. It's the day before New Year's, but New Year's is a holiday. I think, can't speak for other people, but I think most people would rather possibly have time on the 23rd at home rather than be so concerned about the 30th.
Well, I can join Betty on saying I'm not available on the 23rd, but I'm also just an alternate, so
You are or aren't?
I am not.
The 30th might be tough.
I can do the 30th, though.
How are these numbers bouncing off anybody else here?
I can do the 23rd or 30th.
Either's fine with me.
It sounds like you'll have at least 4.
So Linda, could you repeat now what looks like a consensus we got?
Well, I guess you need to ask people to raise their hand if they can come on the 23rd and they want to come on the 23rd.
Is the 23rd out for, well, we hear one.
It's out for me.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm not available on the
not
23rd.
available, 2 out.
I'm available.
I'm more likely available on the 23rd than the 30th. I don't know our exact family plans,
You
but
prefer the 23rd to the
I
30th?
would prefer the 23rd.
Susan, are you available on the
I would just,
23rd?
I would just go with, if you got 4 people that are saying they're available, go with it.
There is, how is our schedule in December? We have on occasion skipped, not had a meeting.
Well, I
We have
skipped
fairly typically canceled
the
the
works.
regular, no, I thought we had typically canceled the rescheduled meeting if we got no new cases.
We've had one meeting for a
So
month.
if we
Oh, I see what you're
had,
saying.
so right now we're regularly scheduled for the 9th and the 23rd. I think in the past what we've done, we would have moved the 23rd to the 30th if that worked better, but canceled that meeting if we had no new business that needed to be noticed for that night.
I-
And just had the work session be our one legally required meeting.
So if I'm getting the idea, James, you're saying if we schedule the 9th and then the 30th, but be open to the idea of canceling the 30th meeting altogether. We already have one individual that can't make the 30th meeting anyway. And that may be true of others, I don't know. That's a pretty odd...
Either of those nights are likely to be difficult for consultants as well and applicants. So, yeah, if it comes close to December and people are asking about our availability and what meetings do we have, and they see those are their two options, they may try and get in a month in advance, or they may wait until January to avoid those.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that, anybody?
I like the idea of the 9th and the 30th, and then canceling if it's not needed on the 30th.
And that satisfies your needs, Betty, but on the other hand, you won't have to come to the 30th probably anyway, so. All right.
That's good way to do it.
So we have a motion to go with the 9th and the 30th of December with the possibility of canceling out the 30th based on our activity demand.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Strobel moved and Lee Baldwin seconded. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. I heard a voice over there.
What, am I too far away?
So what is the vote of the board? All my...
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Unanimous. December meeting, 9th and 30th.
Beautiful.
What did we pick for a date for the second public hearing on the CIP?
Did we actually finish that motion? Or did we did, we said the 7th of October.
Yes. We said the 7th.
The 7th,
The what?
14th,
I'm on the wrong year.
I have a last question.
Oh, yeah,
20th.
I think we're done with internal business, are we?
hold on just 1 second.
1 second, okay.
20. So, October 7th is the continued. Can we plan to also include on that meeting, because again, James is unavailable on the 14th, to discuss any potential zoning amendments to add to the schedule?
Realistically, that's our last shot, probably, if we're going to do something.
Yeah.
What is that regarding the voting amendments, you say?
Regarding identifying zoning amendments that we'd like to tackle for town meeting 2022. If we don't discuss that and have a good idea of what we want to accomplish in October, we just won't have time to get them worked up for hearing.
Does that put us in any...
If we're just doing the public... We're going to add it to the agenda. It's just a board discussion after the public hearing on the CIP.
All right, well, we don't need to vote on that, I don't believe, right? We just
No,
put
you
that
don't
on the
have to vote
agenda.
on it. I just would like... Sounds like a plan.
All right. The only last thing I'd ask, Linda, is there anything here in the signature and pending files that is urgent, that can't wait until next... when?
We do have... Did we get something in that needed to be signed? Oh, maybe not yet. The TF Moran, the Camp Yavna. You haven't received anything in the last week? I know they are getting it ready. I thought they might have dropped it off.
I'm just saying so that nobody's held up for any...
Didn't sound it.
Pardon?
Did the registry reject the condos again?
No, they finally got...
And the answer is no. We're okay?
Are you available should a plan come in to stop in and sign?
To stop by?
Yes.
When? Tomorrow?
No, if a plan comes in next week that requires a planning board signature.
Yes. I think so, if you give me a heads up.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tim's back. That's the only reason I was asking, is just if somebody is hung up, because
Not
Tim...
at this moment, but
Okay.
thank you for asking.
Okay, good enough. Yes, a motion to adjourn. The planning board is adjourned at about 7:34, or 7, what am I saying, 8:34?
Second.
I wish it was
I don't know if we
7:34.
voted on that, Joe.
Dissent on this one will not be tolerated.
Really?